There he was, my daughter's husband of 4 years, standing in a county conference room while my attorney read his employment history out loud. William Wayne Sutton, law degree, Tennessee State. Agriland Acquisitions LLC, 2015 to 2019. Specialized in rural land purchases from elderly property owners. The reporter's pen never stopped moving. My name is Ruth Garrett. I'm 65. 3 weeks before that moment, Wayne had tried to take control of my Tennessee farm using fake power of attorney documents. What he didn't know was that I'd signed a conservation easement 2 weeks before my birthday, legally documented, filed with the county. Or that I'd been watching him since the first dinner Denise brought him to, the way he measured my property, asked about my will. Or that every forgetful moment he documented to prove my incompetence I staged on purpose, calling him the wrong name, losing my keys, missing appointments, all deliberate. All documented by my own attorney. That morning, in front of my daughter and the Cookeville Chronicle, his 4-year plan fell apart in 15 minutes. But let me start from the beginning. Why it works? Opens with the jarring professional exposure reporter documenting a son-in-law's fraud history targeting elderly landowners. The "he didn't know" repetition builds to satisfying justice moment. Best for curious question. Before we dive in, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with someone you love? Drop a quick yes or no in the comments. Please note, some details are fictionalized for storytelling and reflection. What matters most is the lesson about protecting what you've built while holding on to the people who matter. I knew my daughter was lying the moment she said the word insurance. I'm Ruth Garrett, 65 years old as of this morning, retired from teaching history at Cookeville High for 32 years, and the sole owner of 85 acres my father spent his life building. I woke before sunrise to an empty house that smelled like coffee. September fog hung low over the fields. Walter Keller called at 6. He's 67, lives on the adjacent property, and has brought over cornbread on my birthday for 20 years. Happy birthday, Ruth, 65. Your daddy would be proud. He'd say I'm finally old enough to know better. I'll bring cornbread by this afternoon. The only person who remembered. Above the stove, my father Eugene's photograph looked down him in flannel the year he bought the first 40 acres. He died 3 years ago at 68, leaving me the farm with one instruction: keep it or give it away, but never let anyone take it. At 9, a truck pulled into my driveway. My daughter Denise, 38, works part-time at the medical clinic in town and has been married to Wayne Sutton for 4 years. She got out alone. Wayne Sutton, 40, my son-in-law, sat in his truck outside my gate, engine running, not coming to the door. Denise walked in with a folder. "Mom, we need you to sign these. It's just long-term care insurance, in case you ever need help." I set down my coffee. "On my birthday?" "Wayne says the rates go up next month. It's just a formality." I opened the folder. Page 1 looked like insurance paperwork, premiums, coverage, beneficiaries. Page 2 continued the same. I read every line the way my father taught me. Then I turned to page 3. Full property power of attorney. Granting Denise Garrett complete authority over all real estate transactions, financial decisions, and legal matters related to the property at 4758 Old Mill Road, Cookeville, Tennessee. If you've ever been handed a lie wrapped in concern, you know the exact moment the air changes. I looked up. Denise was checking her phone. "Let me read this carefully. Your father taught me to read every word." "Mom, we don't have all day." "Wayne's waiting." I walked to the kitchen drawer where I keep important papers, the same drawer my father used, and pulled out a different document. One I'd prepared 3 weeks ago with my attorney Lawrence Thornton for this exact situation. I signed it at the table, folded it, and handed it to Denise. There, all signed. She slipped it into her purse without reading past my signature. "Thanks, Mom. We'll come back for your actual birthday dinner next week." "Of course. Drive safe." I watched from the window as she climbed into Wayne's truck. Gravel crunched as they pulled away. I poured another cup of coffee and looked up at my father's photograph. Denise folded the paper I'd given her and slid it into her purse without reading past my signature. If she had looked at page 2, she would have seen it was a receipt for farm equipment repair, dated 2019. But she didn't look. People rarely do when they think they've already won. I waited until their truck disappeared before I walked to the porch with my phone. The afternoon had turned cold for September. I sat in the wooden chair my father built and looked out at 85 acres. Lawrence Thornton answered on the first ring, which told me he'd been expecting my call. Lawrence Thornton, 70, has been our family attorney since before I was born. A man who knew my father's mind better than most, and whose voice on the phone carried 43 years of practiced calm. Lawrence, I need to know if the document I prepared is still valid. The 2019 equipment receipt? That was inspired, Ruth. Tell me the real agreement is safe. The easement was recorded September 1st, 2 weeks before your birthday. It's ironclad. I let out a breath I hadn't known I was holding. The real easement agreement with Tennessee Valley Energy, signed, witnessed, filed, 2 weeks before Denise walked into my kitchen. $3.2 million one time, plus $18,000 annually for 30 years. My property rights already committed before my daughter asked me to sign anything. And the power of attorney they wanted? Would have been worthless even if you'd signed it. The property rights were already transferred via easement. I closed my eyes. The sun was warm despite the cooling air. There's something else you need to know, Lawrence said. His voice changed. Wayne Sutton isn't an insurance adjuster. He has a law degree from Memphis. He worked for a land acquisition firm. My hand tightened on the phone. Before he met Denise? Agriland Acquisitions LLC, 2015 to 2019. They specialize in buying undervalued rural property. 2 prior legal disputes in Tennessee and Georgia involving elderly landowners. You need to understand, in rural Tennessee, land isn't just property, it's identity. And Wayne Sutton knew exactly what he was hunting. When? He researched your farm's wind energy potential 6 months before he was introduced to your daughter. 6 months before, not after they started dating, before he ever met her. He targeted her, I said. Yes. Does she know? I don't think so. I heard Walter's truck before I saw it. Lawrence and I said our goodbyes as Walter pulled into the driveway carrying something wrapped in a kitchen towel. Brought the cornbread, still warm. He set it on the porch table and looked at my face. Walter's known me long enough to read what's written there. He didn't ask questions, just pulled up the other chair and sat beside me. Thank you, Walter. You need anything else? I'm right next door. We sat in silence as the sun dropped lower. I thought about my daughter dating a man for 8 months before he proposed. 8 months of Sunday dinners where I watched him study the property lines, ask about mineral rights, mention wind patterns. I'd known something was wrong. The question was whether Denise would believe me when I told her, or whether she'd have to learn the way I did, by watching someone you love reveal they never loved you at all. I waited 3 full days before I unblocked my phone. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee on the morning of the 4th day and opened my contacts, Denise's number, Wayne's number. I unblocked them both and set the phone on the table. It started vibrating immediately. Notifications flooded the screen so fast I couldn't read them. 99 missed calls, 47 text messages, 23 voicemails, 72 hours of silence on my end, desperation on theirs. I started with the texts, reading them in order. Day 1, Denise. Mom, the energy company called. They said you already signed a contract? Day 1, later. Please call me back. I don't understand what's happening. Day 2. Lawrence won't talk to me. He says he only represents you. What's happening? Day 2, evening. The energy company said the contract was signed 2 weeks ago, before your birthday. Why didn't you tell me? Day 3, morning. Please call me. Wayne says you gave us the wrong papers. Please just call. Day 3, afternoon. Mom, I need to talk to you. This doesn't make sense. I set the phone down and poured more coffee. They knew about the real contract. The energy company had called them directly, confirmed the easement, probably asked when they wanted the first payment processed. My daughter had discovered I'd signed away property rights 2 weeks before she walked into my kitchen with forged insurance forms. Then I opened the voicemails. Wayne's voice, day 1. Hey, Mom, just need you to sign the correct forms. Simple mistake. Still calling me Mom. Still pretending. Day 2. Ruth, we need to discuss this contract situation with a proper attorney present. Ruth, now, not Mom. Day 3, yesterday evening, 7:47. Ma'am, I don't think you understand what you've done here. That contract can be challenged. When someone stops using your name and starts using ma'am, they're not being polite, they're creating distance for what comes next. I played it again. Ma'am, you need to understand that signing contracts without family consultation raises serious questions about capacity. We'll be seeking proper legal counsel to review whether you had the mental competence to enter into this agreement. Mental competence, capacity. He'd stopped pretending to be my concerned son-in-law and started building a legal strategy. 3 days after I signed a contract he thought would make me incompetent, he was on a recorded voicemail questioning whether I was competent enough to sign anything at all. I saved the message to a separate folder the way Lawrence had told me to, labeled it with the date and timestamp, September 18th, 7:47 p.m. Wayne Sutton questioning my mental capacity on a recorded line, 3 days after I'd signed a contract with full legal representation. Lawrence had told me to collect everything, document everything, save everything. I was beginning to understand why. I set the phone on the table and looked out the window at my father's land. 85 acres that Wayne Sutton had researched, studied, and planned to take. 85 acres he'd married my daughter to access. And now he was on record calling me ma'am. My daughter looked 10 years older when she knocked on my door that evening. It had been 5 days since the birthday party. 5 days since Wayne's questions about my capacity. 5 days of silence. Denise stood on my porch alone, no Wayne beside her for the first time since their wedding. The September sunset caught the gray in her hair I'd never noticed before. Can I come in? I stepped aside. She walked straight to Eugene's chair by the fireplace and sat down heavily. Her hands shook as she set her purse on the floor. Wayne doesn't know I'm here, she said. I settled into my usual spot on the sofa. I figured. He thinks I'm at book club. You quit book club 3 years ago. She flinched. You remember everything, don't you? I let the silence stretch. Outside, the cattle were settling for the night. Mom, I need to know the truth about the easement. Which truth? I folded my hands in my lap. That it exists? Or that you hoped it didn't? Her face crumpled. Wayne said you didn't understand what you were signing. The conservation easement I signed on September 1st? I kept my voice level. 2 weeks before my birthday? The one that paid $3.2 million and guarantees $18,000 a year in perpetuity? The color drained from her face. I met with the land trust attorney 4 times, Denise. I had my own lawyer review every page. Your father and I talked about it for months before he died. I watched her absorb this. The easement protects the farm from development forever, which means Wayne can't subdivide it, can't sell it to developers, can't turn my cattle pastures into vacation rentals. She was crying now, silent tears running down her cheeks. My turn for a question. I leaned forward. Why did you bring a fake power of attorney document to my birthday party? Her hands twisted in her lap. How did you... I've known since the night you showed up with Wayne for the first time. The way he measured my windows, asked about my will, mentioned how much work the farm was becoming. I paused. There's a difference between being lied to and choosing not to ask questions you're afraid to answer. Denise covered her face with both hands. I'm asking now, I said quietly. Why the fake document? It was his idea. Her voice broke. I just went along with it. You went along with forging legal documents to take control of your mother's assets? He said you needed protection, that you were getting confused, that it was for your own good. She looked up at me, mascara streaking her face. He made it sound like love. I sat back. Part of me wanted to cross the room, to smooth her hair like I did when she was small, to tell her everyone makes mistakes. Instead, I stayed exactly where I was. She needed to sit with what she'd almost done, needed to feel the full weight of choosing a man over her mother. The clock on the mantel ticked, the cattle called. Denise cried into her hands, and I waited. Denise left around midnight. I didn't walk her to the door. Wayne Sutton's truck pulled up to my gate at 6:30 in the morning, and this time he got out. I was watering the vegetable garden, September sun just clearing the tree line. Tomatoes needed deadheading. The bean rows were coming in strong. He walked through the gate without asking. Navy suit and polished shoes at a farm hour. I kept the water flowing. We need to talk about that contract you signed, he said. I glanced up. Good morning to you too, Wayne. This isn't a social call. I gathered that from the suit. I moved to the next plant. Most people call first. He stepped closer. That easement contract can be challenged. If you lacked mental capacity when you signed it, it's voidable. I adjusted the water pressure. Is that right? I've been documenting signs of cognitive decline for 6 months. Forgetting names, missing appointments, confusion about dates. The water pooled around a tomato plant. A pattern of incidents, Wayne continued, witnessed, dated. Any competency hearing would take them seriously. I set down the watering can. You mean like the dinner in August when I called you William? I wiped my hands on my work pants. Or September 3rd when I forgot my doctor's appointment. His jaw tightened. How do you... Or September 10th when I couldn't find my car keys. They were in my purse the whole time. I met his eyes. That's your list, isn't it? Here's what they don't tell you about getting older. People see gray hair and assume confusion when really, you're just watching them reveal exactly who they are. Wayne's face had gone carefully blank. Those incidents demonstrate a pattern. They do, just not the pattern you think. I picked up the watering can again. The beans needed less water than the tomatoes. Eugene taught me that our first summer here... I knew what you were doing, Wayne. I've known since June. You couldn't have. The night you asked Denise if I'd been forgetting things. The week you started showing up with questions about my routine. I kept my voice level. You were building a competency case. The color drained from his face. Every incident you documented after that, I staged it, called you the wrong name on purpose, skipped that appointment but called Dr. Morrison's office first to reschedule. Put my keys in my purse and pretended to lose them. That's not. Lawrence has my journal entries, time-stamped, witnessed. I have the rescheduling confirmation, calendar proof I attended every appointment. I watched comprehension settle over him. You built your case on a performance, and I documented every show. His hands clenched. You want to go to court? You want to tell a judge you tried to prove I was incompetent using incidents I staged because I knew you were watching? Wayne walked back to his truck without another word. I picked up the watering can and finished the tomatoes, watching his tail lights disappear down the gravel road. He'd come to threaten me with guardianship, with lawyers, with taking everything my father built. He left knowing I'd been 3 moves ahead since June. By Sunday, the story he'd planted at church would need an answer. Sunday service let out at 11:15. The whispers started before I reached my truck. Walter Keller walked beside me, his weathered hand steady on my elbow. The usual after-church greetings felt different. Eyes slid away, conversations paused. Wayne stood near the church steps with 3 deacons, expression earnest. Denise beside him, hands clasped. They've been talking, Walter said quietly. I know. Small groups clustered by their cars, glancing our direction. You want me to say something? Not yet. Pastor Howard Fletcher, 62, has led First Baptist for 18 years and knows every family's business before Sunday dinner. He approached, with his kind face troubled. Ruth, may I have a word? Walter didn't step away. Wayne mentioned you signed something with an energy company, Pastor Fletcher said gently. We're concerned you might have been pressured. That's kind of you to worry, Pastor. If you need the church to recommend an attorney or someone to review the contract. I could see Wayne watching from the steps. This was his narrative. Confused widow, manipulated by corporations. I signed an easement agreement with Tennessee Valley Energy after 6 months of negotiation, I said calmly. Lawrence Thornton represented me throughout. Pastor Fletcher's eyebrows rose. 6 months? But Wayne said, the contract was filed with the county 2 weeks before my birthday. I can provide documentation if anyone would like to see it. Small-town churches are where reputations live and die, but Wayne forgot that documentation beats gossip every time. Lawrence Thornton represented you? Pastor Fletcher repeated. For every meeting, every review, every signature. I kept my voice level. It's a conservation easement. The terms include payment plus 30 years of royalties. Walter remained beside me, his presence making his position clear. Before I tell you what that fund really means, are you still with me? Comment A, if Ruth should go public now, or B, if she should keep quiet. Add one short reason. Please note, the next part includes some fictionalized details added to deepen the emotional impact. What matters is the lesson behind it. The county newspaper contacted me last week, I said. They're running a story Friday about the Eugene Garrett Memorial Conservation Fund I'm establishing. Pastor Fletcher blinked. A conservation fund? Using the easement proceeds to protect farmland in my father's name. There'll be an official signing ceremony at the county office Friday at 10. It's open to the public. I watched him process it. 6 months of negotiation. Lawrence Thornton. County filing. Conservation fund. Press coverage. That's wonderful, Ruth. His voice had shifted from concern to calculation. They're welcome to attend the ceremony. Pastor Fletcher shook my hand and walked away slower than he'd approached. Wayne's version had 5 days before mine went public with witnesses and paperwork. In a small town, the truth doesn't always win, but the truth, with a county stamp and a newspaper photographer, usually does. Friday morning would clarify everything, with or without Wayne in the room. Friday morning arrived with clear skies. The county conference room smelled like fresh coffee and legal documents. Mark Hennigan, 46, Senior Contracts Manager for Tennessee Valley Energy, has negotiated wind easements across rural Tennessee for 12 years and knows professional landowners when he meets them. He shook my hand with genuine warmth. Mrs. Garrett has been exceptional to work with, he said to Claire Dotson, 32, who covers county government and business development for the Cookeville Chronicle and never expected a renewable energy signing to turn into an exposure story. Her understanding of wind corridor studies and property rights is remarkably thorough. Claire's pen moved across her notepad. Mrs. Garrett, how long have you owned the farm? My father bought the first 40 acres in 1982. I inherited all 85 3 years ago. Lawrence sat beside me, reviewing each page before I signed. The door opened. Wayne and Denise walked in without knocking. Wayne wore his navy suit. Denise stayed near the door, clutching her purse. We wanted to be here to support Mom through this important moment, Wayne said. Lawrence looked up. This is a closed signing ceremony. Mr. Sutton, family should be present for major decisions, especially at her age. Mark's expression remained professionally neutral. Lawrence reached into his briefcase and removed a second manila folder, set it on the table deliberately. For the record, I'm placing William Wayne Sutton's employment history with Agriland Acquisitions into evidence. Wayne's face went still. That has nothing to do with this contract. It has everything to do with why you're in this room claiming concern for Mrs. Garrett's capacity. The thing about con artists, they only work when nobody's watching. Put them in a room with witnesses and documentation, and they're just another liar with paperwork. Lawrence opened the folder. Agriland Acquisitions, LLC, 2015 to 2019. Specializing in rural land purchases from elderly property owners. 2 civil disputes filed in Tennessee and Georgia involving contested property sales. Claire's pen scratched faster across her notepad. Mr. Sutton also holds a law degree, Lawrence continued, which makes his questions about his mother-in-law's mental capacity particularly calculated. Wayne's jaw tightened. You can't. Lawrence slid the folder across the table to Denise. She picked it up with shaking hands. Read the first page. The second. Property assessment request. March 2021. She read aloud. Putnam County Records. Garrett Farm. 85 acres. She looked up at Wayne. 6 months before we met. Denise, that's not what it looks like. You researched my mother's farm before you asked me out? The conference room went silent, except for Claire Dotson's pen and the overhead lights. Denise set the folder down on the conference table and looked at the man she'd been married to for 4 years. Wayne reached for her arm. She stepped back. Claire Dotson's camera flash went off once, capturing the moment my daughter's face changed from confusion to comprehension. We sat in my car for 10 minutes without speaking. Wayne's truck had left before we'd even reached the door. Denise climbed into my passenger seat without asking. The afternoon sun slanted through the windshield. Downtown Cookeville's main street stretched quiet in front of us. Post office across the street, hardware store, Barbara's diner with its faded awning. Denise's breathing was uneven. My hands stayed on the steering wheel. When did you know? She said finally, voice rough from not crying in the conference room. About Wayne. I kept looking forward, before he proposed. The silence stretched long enough that a car pulled out of the post office lot and drove past. 4 years, her voice broke. You knew for 4 years and didn't say anything? Yes. How? When? The first Sunday dinner. The way he measured property lines with his eyes, asked about mineral rights like he was curious, mentioned wind patterns. I shifted slightly. He was careful. Professional. Why didn't you tell me? I turned to meet her eyes. Would you have believed me? She opened her mouth, closed it. If I'd said your boyfriend was targeting the farm, what would you have thought? I don't know. Maybe not. You would have thought I was jealous or controlling. I kept my voice level. You loved him. He knew how to make you choose him over me. A pickup drove past. Mr. Henderson from church. You let me marry him. I did. You watched me bring him to the farm, help him measure windows, ask about your will. Yes. Loving someone doesn't mean protecting them from every hard truth. Sometimes it means letting them hit bottom so they can learn to climb. I wanted to tell you, I said quietly. Every Sunday, every holiday, every time he asked about the property. I paused. But you needed to see what he was for yourself. Not because I told you, because you couldn't deny it anymore. Denise was crying now, shoulders shaking, silent tears. I didn't pull her into an embrace. Didn't say it would be okay. Didn't smooth her hair like when she was small. I reached over and placed my hand on top of hers briefly, then withdrew. The farm is still yours eventually, I said. But this time, we do it my way. What does that mean? It means boundaries, real ones. I looked at her straight. And it means you decide what happens with Wayne, without me telling you what to do. I don't know what to do. I know. How do I even go home? He'll be there. He'll have explanations. That's your decision. Not mine. Not Lawrence's. Yours. Yours. She nodded slowly, still crying. I started the engine and pulled out of the parking space. Denise got into her own car, 2 spaces down the car Wayne had bought her, with money he'd planned to steal from me. I drove home alone. She sat in that parking lot for another 20 minutes, and I know because Walter told me later he'd driven past and seen her there, just sitting. Some decisions you can't make for people. 3 weeks is enough time to know if someone's coming back. Denise hadn't. My father's name appeared on the front page of the Cookeville Chronicle 3 weeks after the signing. Lawrence's office smelled like wood polish and old law books. The Conservation Fund documents sat on his desk, each page flagged with yellow tabs. "Your father would be proud of this, Ruth," Lawrence said as I signed. "He spent 40 years building that land. This keeps it meaning something." The Eugene Garrett Memorial Conservation Fund. $50,000 annually from the wind turbine royalties. Legal assistance and low-interest loans for Tennessee farm families resisting corporate land acquisition. First distribution can begin January 1st, Lawrence said. 5 families already on the waiting list. I paused. 5? Small operations, all facing pressure from development companies. He adjusted his reading glasses. Your father's land, protecting other families' land. I finished signing. Lawrence gathered the pages. Then he set his hands flat on the desk. Wayne Sutton moved out of Denise's apartment 2 weeks ago, he said quietly. I didn't ask how he knew. He's staying at the extended stay motel near the interstate. No divorce filed yet. And Denise? Still at the clinic, working full shifts. He paused. Tennessee Real Estate Commission is investigating his license. The Georgia case is being reopened. I absorbed this without comment. Reputation is like topsoil, takes years to build, washes away in one storm, but newspaper ink makes it stick. Lawrence pulled out that morning's Chronicle, unfolded it on the desk. Front page. Top half. Local woman honors father's legacy with Farm Protection Fund. The photo showed me holding my father's picture from the kitchen wall. I read the first line aloud. Eugene Garrett, who passed in 2022, spent 40 years building sustainable farmland in Putnam County. Mark Hennigan was quoted praising the environmental stewardship. Pastor Fletcher from First Baptist said the community was proud to see local families protecting Tennessee land. Walter called this morning, Lawrence said. Said half the church has already seen it. Good. Let them read the actual story this time. I drove home with the newspaper folded on the passenger seat. The kitchen was quiet when I walked in. Afternoon sun through the window, same light my father stood in every morning. I opened the drawer where he'd kept important papers, the same drawer I'd kept them since inheriting the farm. I placed the newspaper inside carefully. Beside it sat a white envelope, Denise's handwriting, postmarked October 8th. I hadn't opened it. My fingers traced the edge once. Then I closed the drawer. I looked at that envelope for a long time before I closed the drawer. Denise had written it a week ago, dropped it in the mail, waited for some response I hadn't given. The old me would have torn it open immediately, desperate for any sign she still wanted a relationship. The new me knew I could open it tomorrow, or next week, or never, and that choice was mine to make. I opened it a month later. I opened Denise's letter on the first night of frost. The kitchen was quiet except for the old clock over the sink. November evening settling dark outside the windows. Tea steaming in my father's mug, the one with the faded John Deere logo. The white envelope sat on the table in front of me. 4 weeks since it arrived. 4 weeks of choosing not to open it. Tonight felt right. I slid my finger under the seal and pulled out 2 handwritten pages. Not typed, not text. Denise's careful handwriting I recognized from childhood thank you notes and school permission slips. Crossouts visible in places. Real effort behind every line. Mom, it began. I knew he was too interested in the farm. I knew, and I told myself it meant he cared about my family. The paper trembled slightly in my hands. I told myself you were being difficult when you asked questions about him, that you couldn't accept me being happy, that you wanted me to stay single so I'd never leave. I kept reading. That afternoon in your car, when you put your hand on mine, I felt more seen in that 1 second than in 4 years of marriage. You didn't say it was okay. You didn't say, I'd be fine. You just touched my hand and let me sit with what I'd done. The tea was getting cold. I didn't touch it. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just want you to know I'm trying to become the daughter worthy of that land, worthy of what Grandpa built, worthy of how you protected it. I folded the letter carefully, set it on the table, looked through the kitchen window at 85 acres under November darkness and frost. Forgiveness isn't a light switch you flip, it's ground you prepare, season after season, until something new can grow. The same land my father worked for 40 years, the same kitchen where he taught me to read property deeds and trust documents, the same drawer where he kept what mattered. He'd taught me that land endures if you protect it, that roots run deep if you give them time, that some things are worth fighting for quietly, without ever raising your voice. I took out paper and pen, wrote my reply by hand, not email, not text. Denise, I wrote, I read your letter. Would you like to visit the farm for Christmas? We can talk then. Mom. Not forgiveness, not yet. Maybe not ever in the way she wanted, but an opening. A door left unlocked, not thrown wide, but unlocked. I signed it, addressed the envelope in the same careful handwriting my father taught me. His picture looked down from the wall above the stove, flannel shirt and patient smile. I sealed the envelope and set it on the table to mail tomorrow. Outside, frost settled deeper on the fields my father built. The land had stood through 40 years of Tennessee weather, drought and flood, ice storms and heat waves, seasons that tried to break it and seasons that let it rest. I thought a mother-daughter relationship could do the same, if both sides were willing to let it grow back from the roots. And to you listening to my story, remember this. Protecting what you love doesn't always look like what people expect. Looking back, I wish I'd found a way to warn Denise earlier without pushing her away. But I also know that sometimes people need to see the truth for themselves. I spent 4 years watching my daughter trust the wrong man, and it nearly cost us everything. Don't make my mistake of staying silent too long, but also don't force people to see what they're not ready to face. This revenge story isn't just about outsmarting a con man, it's a grandma story about protecting what matters. Some might call this a revenge story, but to me it's a grandma story about land, legacy, and family. I learned that boundaries aren't walls, they're foundations. That documentation beats emotion, that you can love someone and still refuse to be their victim. God's timing brought everything to light exactly when it needed to, not when I wanted it, but when Denise could finally hear it. Real strength isn't about winning. It's about standing firm and letting the people you love find their way back. If this story spoke to you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to protect something precious from someone you love? Please share this with anyone who might need to hear it, and subscribe for more stories about family, boundaries, and finding strength when it matters most. Thank you for staying until the very end. Your time means more than you know. Please remember, some details in this story have been fictionalized for storytelling and reflection. What matters is the lesson, and I hope it stays with you.